Yo, the YouTuber who thinks Australia doesn't exist. Yo, I mean, really thinking about it, do we really trust maps? Huh? Do we really trust these maps? Huh? Do you really think the moon is real? Have you seen Moonfall? Hmm? Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
Think
Rag
about that.
Reynolds. He's a Scottish YouTuber who's convinced that the entire country of Australia doesn't really exist.
There's no proof that it exists. It's a fantasy. It's no more real than Narnia.
And while he'd eventually get into arguments with other large Australian creators, host podcasts in which he'd tell Australians that they weren't real, and even attempt to visit the non-existent country himself, his conspiracy theory began to develop on the 22nd of April 2014, when he'd start to express his hatred for the country.
If you could destroy one country in the world, which would it be? This is without a doubt the easiest question to ever answer, because the answer is Australia. That country is a waste of space. That country is the worst place on earth.
Oh, ear. I mean, bro, damn. What Australian hurt you, bro? Like, damn.
Australia. Bad.
That clip comes from one of the earliest videos posted to
Wow,
Rag
bro.
Reynolds' channel, and it highlights it in the beginning. Although he clearly hated Australia, he still considered it a real place, yet this hatred wasn't only confined to his YouTube channel. He'd post tweets such as a public service, I will personally burn Australia to the ground, let's send Australia to space, as well as one final banger reading, if Australia wins Eurovision, I will drown one puppy and burn one baby for every
Wow,
point they win
okay.
by. Rag Reynolds didn't specify exactly where this hatred had come from, although as time progressed, his dislike for the country only continued to grow. Just over 2 years after initially stating that he'd like to burn Australia to the ground, he'd upload a new video simply titled Down with Australia, in which he began to outline why he hated the country so much, with his first point being that we simply have an annoying accent.
Like, what's going
Australians have
on?
the second most irritating accents on earth, beaten only by South Africans. Every time I hear a pathetic Australian say, "my," I just want to punch them in
I can't believe this dude exists. Bro. Holy shit, bro. Oh my god, this is gonna be good.
and they're good for nothing
We're only
liver.
a
Since it's
minute
common
in.
knowledge that all Australians are alcoholics, a punch to an Australian's liver would most likely be fatal.
Before he display a map showing that Australians have an average IQ of 60, being the lowest out of any country in the entire world.
Speaking of how dumb Australians are, the image on screen now is an IQ map of the world. As you can see, Australia has the lowest average IQ out of every single country on the planet.
Yeah, while these points showed that Rag Reynolds still believed in Australia's existence, it wasn't going to stay like this
Oh
for
my
much
goodness.
longer.
Okay,
Only
let's
8 months
go.
after uploading Down with Australia, Rag Reynolds' hatred for the country would transform into the belief that Australia didn't exist at all.
I was
Okay.
certainly pretty mad over the existence of Australia, and then without warning, I came across some guy on Twitter claiming that Australia does not exist. This was a theory I had never even
finally
considered prior
snapped.
to that moment. I just found out that Australia isn't actually a real place. Can't believe I was mad about that place for so long. It all makes sense now. I, Rag Reynolds, am an Australia denier.
Now, Rag Reynolds' disbelief in Australia wasn't exactly an original idea. He even claimed in the previous clip that his theory had been inspired by another user on Twitter. In fact, the conspiracy theory dates all the way back to November of 2006, when the following post was made to the Flat Earth forums. Most of you have
What?
probably been brought up believing in the imaginary land called Australia. I bet many of you
Of course, it would be flat earthers. The legends themselves would help this man only further push
even
his
learned about it
agenda.
in school. Well, the fact is that Australia doesn't really exist. Everything you've ever heard about it was made up, and any pictures of it you have seen were faked by the government. I'm sure you've even talked to people on the internet who claim to be from Australia. They are really secret government agents who are surfing the internet to enforce these false beliefs. We're not exactly sure why the government made up an imaginary continent, or why it is trying to convince the world that this continent is real, but we can tell you that we know for a fact that Australia doesn't really exist. Please join us in our quest to convince the world of the truth.
Or, what if we're all on Australia? What if Australia is just one big block of island, right? And it's like Hunter x Hunter. And it turns out they're just trying to, you know, us, protect us and keep us from knowing the truth. Because if we go outside, you know, it will just lead us to find out that dinosaurs were never extinct. They just became reptilians. Maybe that, it's just
However, as you might be able
Show
to
me the
gather
proof.
from this reply, there wasn't exactly all that much evidence for the theory. There was one individual who posted a world map with and without Australia in the bottom right-hand corner, and while this didn't exactly constitute evidence, the lack of proof for the theory hasn't stopped a select group of people from believing it to be true. In April of 2018, more than 200 individuals gathered in the UK city of Birmingham to discuss whether or not Australia was real, and while it's easy to laugh and scorn from a distance, one of the attendees actually had a pretty reasonable argument for why the theory might be true. Australia is not real. It's a hoax made for us to believe that Britain moved over their criminals to some place. In reality, all these criminals were loaded off the ships into the waters, drowning before they could see land ever again. It's a cover-up for one of the greatest mass murders in history, made by one of the most prominent empires. Now, to give credit where credit is due, this post establishes a pretty solid motive for why someone might have wanted to fake the country. However, as the post continued, it only got wackier, and the credibility began to crumble. Your Australian friends, they're all actors and computer-generated personas, part of the plot to trick the world.
Just
if
like
you
birds.
think you've ever been to Australia, you're terribly wrong. The plane pilots are all in on this, and have in all actuality only flown you to islands close nearby, or in some cases parts of South America, where they have cleared space and hired actors to act out as real Australians. However, this
She is living in the Truman Show for sure.
is the point at which Rag Reynolds begins to stand out as unique, as he actually has his own theory for why Australia has been faked.
The theory goes like this. The founder of New Zealand hated how his people sounded when they spoke. It was necessary to make their country known as anything other than the worst received country known to man. So he got his council together and they put together a plan. They were going to take all of the worst parts of their culture, make it 50 times worse, ingrain it into the minds of 100 citizens with the lowest IQs, and then put those people into an abandoned city together with cameras on them 24/7. New Zealand had essentially set out to create a faux reality show in order to fool the world into thinking that there was a place worse than their homeland.
Rag Reynolds would then go on to add that Australia's unique wildlife, such as kangaroos, had been roboticized by New Zealand in order to reinforce the lie.
They decided it might be a good idea to start introducing strange new animals, so they created the robotic creature that we know today as a kangaroo.
With his evidence for this claim being a debate.org poll.
A poll shows that people are beginning to actually wake up and realise the truth that there's no Australia. 37% think yes, but 63% say no. A compelling argument is made here by a
That's
user
all of
going
the
by the name
world.
of Massive Dump.
Rag Reynolds'
That's
conspiracy
maybe,
theory page would receive a dislike ratio of over
Oof.
94%. However,
plus
the comments
ratio,
were surprisingly
Australia.
supportive. Being an Australian myself, I completely agree with this theory. I'm totally not a secret robot living on planet Oogly Boogly. Being from Australia, I'm shocked that such a genius found out our secret. We are all not
I love
real.
Australians.
Thank you for enlightening me on the heinous truth about Australia. I no longer think that it exists. Thank you, Rag Reynolds. However, while these Australians had successfully been convinced that they didn't actually exist, others needed a little more persuading, which led to a Rag Reynolds podcast episode on which he would invite 3 different Australians to argue about whether or not they existed.
I'm joined by self-proclaimed Australians as they're going to attempt to explain to me just why they think that Australia is a real place.
While the people on the podcast made some pretty reasonable points, Rag Reynolds couldn't be convinced, and if anything, judging by these videos, it would only further strengthen his belief that Australia wasn't real. However, it would be with these videos that the hornet's nest was stirred up, as shortly after posting them, other larger YouTubers began to make videos on the stupidity of Rag Reynolds' theory. The third largest YouTuber in Australia, Laserbeam, would upload a video titled "It Turns Out Australia is Fake."
No one's given literally any evidence. Nothing. They've just yelled at me and said it's fake.
Prompting a response titled "Dear Laserbeam, you are delusional."
He
there you
thinks
go.
he is from a place that he is not really from. He is clearly just drugged up. He does not seem to understand logic, reason. He ignores facts.
Which was followed by Rag Reynolds getting into a full-blown YouTube war with one of Australia's most patriotic creators, Isaac Butterfield, leading both of them to argue about the theory on Isaac's podcast.
Down under.
Maybe I've been coming at you from the wrong orientation, so I hope that maybe
I can't with this dude, bro. I love this dude. This dude's such a fucking buffoon.
today I can fix that.
It seemed as though Rag Reynolds was never going to change his mind on Australia's existence.
Oh
However,
my
shortly
God,
after
bro.
beefing with these larger creators, the first sign of him coming back to reality appeared, specifically when he'd upload a
No, I
video
want
simply
him to go
titled I
down
Was
the
Wrong.
rabbit
And now
hole.
it's all starting to make a bit more sense. And now I don't know what to think. My main piece of evidence, my own experience, is not actual evidence. It's not what I thought it was. All I have left is speculation and theories.
And when
You gotta travel to Australia. Yes, but you gotta get on your plane, head over there.
looking at the comments on the video, one highlighted the most effective way for Rag Reynolds to confirm whether or not his suspicions were true. Why not book a ticket to Australia to see it
Yeah,
for
thank you,
real?
thank
And
you,
this
thank
is
you, thank you.
exactly what he would do, although apparently this would only reinforce to Rag Reynolds that the country was in fact fake. He'd explain all of this in a
Okay.
video titled I Went to Australia, It Isn't Real, in which he'd explained that during his trip, he had seen some things leading him to believe that it was a real place, although ultimately he believed that he had been drugged by the New Zealand government and the whole thing was simply a hallucination.
When people go to Australia, they're actually landing in
Okay.
New Zealand. They are drugged. They imagine all of the experiences there.
Naturally, his audience began to call him out by stating that he never even went there in the first place, resulting in Rag Reynolds taking a polygraph test to confirm that he had in fact been to Australia.
I am a truth talker.
And we all know polygraph tests aren't real. They can be manipulated.
Everything I say in my videos is the truth, and this polygraph test has just confirmed that.
However, by this point, it seemed as though the criticism was getting all too much for him. In September of 2020, Rag Reynolds would upload a video titled I'm Sorry Australia, in which he'd explained that he was struggling to deal with the negativity
The hate I get, folks, the abuse I get in my comment section,
Aww.
every single video, people disliking my videos, my Instagram DMs, there's people being horrible to me. I don't know where it ends. It just goes on and it goes on, and it never seems to stop.
and that maybe after
Dang,
everything,
man.
he was in the wrong and it was time to apologize.
So maybe you people are right. It's time for me to issue the first apology of my entire life.
This apology would come
It's the woke agenda, bro. You gotta keep yourself woke, bro.
in one final video titled Australia Does Exist,
Don't
during
fall for
which
the
after
okey
all
doke.
of this time, Rag Reynolds would finally admit that Australia was a real place.
Australia is real. Of course it's a real place. You can see pictures of it from satellites in space. They have lovely wildlife. And I would like to apologise to all
Okay.
Australians out there. Australians, Australia, I am sorry.
Only Rag Reynolds was very careful about the date on which this video was uploaded. April 1st, also known as April Fool's Day.
April
Ooh.
Fools! You're all drugged up and brainwashed.
And to this day, Rag Reynolds is still convinced that Australia isn't real.
What a giga Chad. What a fucking Chad. Okay. That's it. This is, I see, okay, the flat earthers, the people that believe that I feel like, okay, people that believe that the moon is a projection, flat earthers, I could see all these, but this one to me is so, wild that I can't. It's just I can't get over it. I really can't. All right. So this is definitely one of those wild videos that it's just like, it's just fun to go into. Yeah, I don't know what to say. The flat earthers, people that believe the moon's a projection, all these people that have like, I think there's like a something else agenda going on. Like, I don't know what, but I can't even express myself properly here. Whatever.